What's Going On by Christina Anderson. Chapter 2, The Boot Camp. Okay, before we go any further we have to agree in one area, and that is that there is life after death. Almost without exception, every religion in the world agrees that the body is not the sum of us and that our soul exists separate to our physical form. Religion also agrees that there is a universal force, whether you call it God or not, which interacts with this reality. We are all one with this force. We came from this force and we will return to this force. Like a cup of water from the ocean, we are part of the eternal God force. There are literally hundreds of books written by psychics, mediums and philosophers which lend evidence to the truth that there is a spirit form of every human being. I personally know this to be true. Twice in my life, when least expected it, I have caught sight of an apparition or a person in spirit form. On one of these occasions I actually walked right into it and fell through it. That was an unnerving experience, to say the least. Through meditation and observation I have learnt to recognise situations where someone or something has intervened in my life. I'm not going to bore you with countless examples, but suffice to say that there is another side, and other side spirits reside and the God force exists. Its most common name is heaven. Now this is where I break away from traditional religion, primarily because I believe there is no hell. There is no devil and there are no evil spirits. There are some confused and sometimes angry earthbound ghosts who haven't gone home yet, but that's another story. Therefore, if there is no hell, then there is no judgment. We don't have to earn our way back into heaven. It is our God-given right to go home. Every one of us goes home, no matter how badly we screw it up while we are here. Just think about that for a moment. This concept alone can bring more peace into your life. There is no hell. There is no one to judge you. There is nowhere scary and frightening for you to potentially spend eternity if you make a mistake. Hell only exists in one place, and that is here. This is hell. You are living in it. This is the scary, frightful place so often referred to. How much of a hell this place is for you depends entirely on how you wish to view your reality. The interesting part is that God, the universe, or whatever you wish to name this universal energy, created it. So the question has to be asked, why would an all-loving universe create a hell in the first place? Well, let's think about it. Imagine being in heaven. You come from there, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Heaven is all about love. Everything is cool, everything is great, you can't be hurt, you can't die, you don't have headaches, heartaches or tears. From everything I've ever read, seen or felt, heaven is a place where nothing goes wrong and nothing is bad. A place with no relativity. So what could be the problem with having a place to live eternally where there is no relativity? Well, to start with, no orgasmic showers. If we need a negative to accentuate a positive, then what must be lacking in heaven is the relativity to create the extreme positives. There would be no challenges to help you define yourself. No stimulational situations that give you the opportunity to show what you are made of, so to speak. It would be harder to define who you really are and what you believe to be your truth. So the universe or God created a place where we as eternal spirits could go to experience relativity. A place where we could experience ourselves being ourselves, defining who we are and what we believe to be right. And we, being either crazy, stupid, very brave or just plain curious, or a combination of all, we, that is you and me, volunteered to come here. It's as uncomplicated as that, a boot camp for the spirit world. This reality is simply a place of relativity provided for us to experience. In this place is the potential for anything and everything, all the perceived good and all the perceived bad. A reality made available simply to experience relativity. That's all, just experience. There is nothing you have to accomplish, there is nothing you have to achieve, there is nothing God wants from you while you are here. It is challenging enough just being here. Even more fascinating is that there is nothing you have to change or fix, which we'll talk about shortly. And at the end, we all go home. Let me say that again, we all go home. You do not have to earn redemption or admission into heaven. There is no such thing as someone going to heaven and another person not. Everyone you ever meet, see or hear about will end up back on the other side with you. Everyone goes to heaven, good or bad. I use those terms loosely because we're not in a position to understand who is good and bad at this stage, as we will discuss shortly too. Not only that, we are all honoured for coming here by those spirits still back on the other side. And I mean really honoured. It must be the bravest thing a soul can do. You volunteered to come into a reality that has an ample supply of fear, anger, sorrow, pain and negativity. You are a hero in the eyes of the universe. It does not matter how badly you think you've handled your life to date, because as far as the universe is concerned, you are a bona fide hero in every sense of the word. I cannot stress this point strongly enough. I've had my own personal experience to reinforce this idea that changed my perspective on life forever. Firstly, I want to point out here, I'm not a dream analyst. I'm sure analysing dreams works for some people, but not for me. In fact, if you analyse my dreams, I'm sure the task in itself would send you mad. I believe that nearly all dreams are simply your brain literally running amok while you're off guard. Like an unsupervised kid in a lolly store, it just runs off thinking all sorts of crap until you wake back up and get it under control. Actually, most of the time I can hardly remember my dreams within a few minutes of waking. Having said that, in over 40 years of dreaming, I have had 3 dreams that do not fall into that category. These are dreams that when you wake up are so vividly clear in every detail, and 6 months later they're still clear. These dreams have a very strong emotional feel, and I'd like to tell you about one very briefly. In this dream, I was walking around the corner of a building. It felt like a Roman Colosseum or something. I looked up and saw a man who I immediately knew to be my husband's father. How I knew this I don't know, because I'd only met the man once, very briefly, about 15 years ago. Anyway, in the dream I remember thinking, shit, that's my father-in-law. I look a mess and I wanted to look so nice the next time I met him. Pretty strange really, because I had no intention of meeting him again. He'd passed away about 10 years earlier. In the dream, he just silently walked towards me and put his arms around me to give me a hug. Now I can tell you that the English language, or any language in the world for that matter, does not have the words or vocabulary to describe the feelings that came over me. There were no words spoken, however he communicated 3 things to me in what seemed like only seconds. The first, I had never ever done anything wrong. I had never made a mistake or misjudged something. I had literally never ever done anything wrong. That was so intense. I can still remember the awesome wave of relief that enveloped me. I had never done anything wrong. The second, I was absolutely adored. Not liked, not just loved, adored and worshipped. I was worshipped like one would a hero who'd travelled the seas for years in search of a remedy that could cure millions of lives. Absolute hero worship. The third point was something to do with him loving my husband and passing that on. But those first 2 messages were for every human being that walks this earth. And that was it. It was over. I sat bolt upright in bed and just started crying. A wave of peace came over me as I sat there in the dark in the middle of the night. It was the most awesome experience I've ever had, and I know I could not make it up, because until I had that dream I did not even know there were emotions as strong as those. I feel extreme love for my children, I'm sure you do too, but multiply that by about 1,000 to get anywhere near the love that was exchanged with me in those brief seconds. There is nothing on this planet that can represent or come close to the intensity of those feelings of love and support. I understand now why people who've had a near-death experience often say they cannot put the experience into words, because it's almost impossible to do so. Now don't get me wrong, I've not led a guilt-free life. There are many things I'd consider I've done wrong in the past, but those wrongs were as bad as a child who gets his shoelace wrong doing it up the first time. They're so minor in comparison to what we are truly achieving. The bottom line here is, you have volunteered to come into a reality of relativity, and your only job, so to speak, is to experience that relativity and then return home to that place of absolute love and support. As I said before, I consider this reality somewhat like a boot camp for enthusiastic, overachieving spirits like you and me, who want to experience relativity and all that it entails. That's all there is to it. Easier said than done. If we are only here to experience relativity, how can we possibly get it wrong? Does that mean you can walk around the earth hurting people? No, it does not, but not for the reasons you might think. There are some natural laws that are operating in this reality, and they are here to help us while we are here experiencing relativity. These laws help us have some control on how our lives unfold, and they guide the whole experience. So let's look a bit closer at how our life operates within these laws.